I'm joined in GB News in the studio by the leader of Reform UK himself, Mr. Nigel Farage. Mr. Farage, welcome to the studio. Let's start with the good points. You clearly had a very close relationship with Zia Yusuf. You've been very complimentary about his technical abilities. Tell us about the strengths you believe he brought to Reform UK.
I first met him about 12 years ago at a private event in London. You know, young, entrepreneur, ambitious, wanted to make his way in the world, but I was very struck by his values. That, you know, we came to this country, my parents came as immigrants, you've been good to us, we're part of this. Big supporter of Brexit, big believer in Brexit, which is why we first met, basically, as I was campaigning to leave the EU. Came back on the radar last year. He'd been hugely successful in business. He sold his business. He had time. He gave us some money towards the general election campaign. Shortly afterwards, I said, do you want to become party chairman? I said, it's a tough, tough job. And he accepted. And so for 11 months, we've been pretty much inseparable. For 11 months, we've been working towards May the 1st. And I said last week that we would not have achieved what we did on May the 1st last year without his hard work, without his skill. And he's brilliant when it comes to data. He's brilliant when it comes to the technical side of things. You know, he really is in a class of his own. Frankly, I'm sad that he's going. I'm sad for the party because he leaves a gap. I'm sad for him, actually, because I spoke to him yesterday morning, and I felt, he's really he's kind of had enough of all of this. Then Sarah Poachin asked that question in the Commons. He then put a sort of slightly intemperate tweet out. That I could tell reading that tweet. I just thought, he's not coming in tomorrow. You know? So he disagreed. He thought Sarah shouldn't have asked a question about the burqa. And there's a debate around that. You know, is it a main priority, etc. But look, I'm sad. And I think public life has lost somebody very talented and somebody who's come from within the ethnic minorities that is intensely patriotic about this country. That's a loss.
Let's talk now about the resignation and the reasons perhaps behind it. Let's first focus on that Sarah Poachin question. She came into the studio here, gave the first interview about that, and there was a huge reaction about is it the party policy?
No.
And particularly Zia Yusuf, of course, his cultural background. Was there anything in the fact that he felt that was a slight towards Muslims, a slight towards him, or is that just internet conspiracy theory?
I suspect that he thought, I don't know, but I suspect that he thought it just wasn't one of our priorities. We've got other things to talk about. The cost of living crisis, the net zero madness, the channel, open borders, the population explosion, the NHS not working. And there is a debate about whether it's worthwhile spending much time talking about this or not. I mean, to me, actually, it's broader than the burqa. It's the Antifa lot that was screaming at me on Monday wearing face masks. So it's right to have a debate about this. Zia didn't like it, obviously, but no, I think before she said that, he pretty much... Listen, he's had enough. And can I just tell you that it's 100 hours a week, it's 7 days a week. It is totally unrelenting. On X in particular, it's full of vile trolls, particularly the alt-right types, who have been just outright horrific towards Zia right from the very start. And I think he's just said to himself, do you know what? There are other things I can do with my life. He's just had enough. But I've noticed over my career in politics, a lot of people who've been very successful in business, particularly entrepreneurs, they come into politics and they find it very, very frustrating. Very few stay.
Mr. Farage, can I put to you, there have been a lot of talk about internal factions. Of course, Rupert Lowe left the party under a bit of a cloud. Was there a conflict of personality between Zia Yusuf and Rupert Lowe? And also, what about rumours that swirl that people can find him difficult to deal with? Perhaps the fact he's so good at data. What about the humanity side? First of all, the rift with Rupert Lowe, was that anything to do with it?
No. We all had a rift with Rupert Lowe. Rupert's behaviour was unacceptable at so many levels. So this wasn't just Zia. All of us found him impossible to work with. So, that was that. Zia, when people have exceptional strengths in some areas of their life, there are other areas where perhaps they're not quite so strong. I think in terms of dealing with staff, etc., there was a bit of a Goldman Sachs type mentality. I mean, politics is different.
The word is he was quite dictatorial from the centre, didn't like feedback, thin-skinned, is that fair to say?
No, tough. Very, very tough. And I think when you come from the background he comes from, say Goldman Sachs, where he worked, it is a really tough, brutal environment. Politics isn't like that. Politics isn't just about creating a financial bottom line. It's about doing things that are thoughtful, creative and different. So look, were his interpersonal skills at the top of his list of attributes? No. But I always found him, with me, very polite, very objective in conversations that I had. Look, he and I have worked together for 11 months, 7 days a blooming week. We've barely had a disagreement during that time. I've got huge admiration for him, and I think he for me. Not everyone got on with him. But you know what? It's called politics. Yeah. Not everyone does get on.
Can I ask you, it's fair to say the online reaction from Reform UK supporters and voters has to be said, quite a lot of happiness in the air that Mr Yusuf has gone. Why do you think that is? What was it about the voter base of Reform UK that may have...
I think that the persistent campaign against him on X, and much of it coming from Indian bots,
right,
has perhaps, made some Reform members question him, question his motives. All of that's completely unfair. But it will have added to his sense of, I want a life.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 38. He's got money in the bank. There's a lot of other things he can do. He's just had enough of this way of life. I mean, Martin, I can tell you, there are many mornings over the years when I've got up and thought to myself, why on earth am I putting myself through this? It's not easy.
Nigel Farage, you said when you read that response to the Sarah Poachin tweet, something in your waters, in your bones, told you knew what was coming. When and how did you find out?
I spoke to him yesterday morning, and he did seem very, very disengaged.
I mean, how did you find out about the resignation? Did you find out first, or was it...
No, I was given a 10-minute warning.
Right.
That it was going to come. And as I say, I'm disappointed, I'm sad, and he's a loss. He's a loss. There is a gap there, particularly around Doge.
Yes.
I was the one going around the counties saying every county needs a Doge, and he was the guy actually trying to put it into action. So he leaves a gap. Of that, there's no question.
Well, the Doge work was front and centre. It was only launched this week.
Yeah.
It's a big selling point, of course, all those councils where, let's be honest, there needs to be something delivered by Reform.
Yeah.
Will Mr Yusuf still stay on as a part of those Doge units? Is the chairman resignation a resignation from the party full stop?
No, he's walking away. He's walking away from the whole political game, I suspect, never to return. And as I say, there are many other businessmen before him who've come into the politics and just decided in the end they don't want the aggro, they don't need the abuse. So, no, I think that's that. I hope I'm wrong, but, as I say, I've got to find some new people.
If Zia Yusuf is watching this interview, which I'm sure he will, what would be your message to him?
Thank you. Thank you for coming in, for being so loyal to me, and for enabling me to travel around the country campaigning whilst you were there in London, getting the nuts and bolts in place, and allowing us to achieve, on May the 1st, the most astonishing victory.
Your political opponents, of course, will be licking their lips. A lot of them were saying Reform is a small party, and they're almost expecting the wheels to fall off. Is that what's happening?
No, it's one person who's had enough. He's come in, he's done a great job, he's gone. Elon Musk is a very big businessman, really rather successful, the world's richest man. He's gone into politics, and you know what? He's walked away as well. It's a very, very common thing.
It's a brutal business, as you said yourself, and that means thoughts must immediately turn to a potential successor. Anybody in mind?
No, if you've got any ideas, do tell me. Well, this only happened a couple of hours ago. I did have my suspicions yesterday that he clearly... he wanted to declutter some of his responsibilities, but he was decluttering them rather faster yesterday than I thought perhaps he might. No, I've got to give it some good, hard thought. Listen, he's done a great service for the party. Not everyone liked him. That's life. That's politics. I'm grateful to him. I'm going to think hard about how to replace him.
Some of the people that have left the party since Mr Yusuf came in, could there be a way back for them now? For example, could Rupert Lowe find a way back into Reform UK?
I'd rather eat razor blades after the way he's behaved and the things he said about us. No.
Ben Habib?
Good Lord, no. No, you can't work with people who, when they have the slightest disagreement with you on anything, go public the whole time. You can't operate in politics with people like that. If you're going to have disagreements, sit down over a cup of tea in a room and talk about it. Those guys chose to do it all publicly.
Just to be absolutely sure, once again, this was not a fallout between you and Mr. Yusuf. There was no faction. There was no fireball moment. This was an amicable separation, you say?
I don't think it's amicable from his perspective. I think he is. He probably feels what an ungrateful, brutal, nasty business politics is. You never get any thanks. You get shed loads of abuse. It consumes your whole life. It means you have no personal life whatsoever. You've got to be a very odd human being. Very odd human being to want to do it. And you know something? Doing it in a smaller party and having to build it from pretty much scratch organisationally is much harder than being in one of the two big parties.
Just a quick final question about the Rupert Lowe incident. Do you think that incident was handled well, particularly between reporting it to the police? Was that the right thing to do looking back?
Well, you know what? When you're a chairman, it's a bit like being a chief executive. You make lots of decisions. Most of his decisions were right. That one, well, maybe not.
You're saying perhaps...
Maybe not.
You're saying perhaps it was a mistake to involve the police?
I think you know what? You make decisions all the time. Some you get right, maybe some you get wrong.
If anybody's watching out there that would like to be the next chairman of Reform UK, what are you looking for? What are the characters? You said you need to have no social life. It's a brutal business. You've
got to be really... You've really got to dedicate yourself to doing a job for which you'll get a lot more abuse than praise. You've got to believe in the cause.
A lot of people were saying that this was inevitable. Is this the end of Reform UK?
Oh, goodness gracious me. We heard all that nonsense a few months ago. No, of course it's not. And, you know, we will replace Zia and we'll move on and we'll keep building and we'll get ready for the next, you know, Scottish elections next year or whatever else it may be. So, look, it's one person who's made a great contribution. He's had enough. He's gone.
OK, thank you very much for joining us. Nigel Farage, on that dramatic resignation of Chairman Zia Yusuf. Thank you for coming in tonight. Appreciate your time.